Is it all right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let me introduce our second speaker, Vaida Misevičiūtė from Vytautas Magnus University in Lithuania, who specializes in plurilingual education and also metacognitive practices in education. And today she's going to speak about how effective reflective practices in the process of peer learning and peer assessment. Over to you.
All right, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am really talking about the experience I had in Lithuania. My experience teaching is in the United States, and I lived there for about 20 years. So I feel like most of my learning was really in the United States. And I went into a doctoral program that was amazing. There were no grades. It was just pair learning, collaborative learning. And I wanted to introduce that same model in Lithuania when I arrived to finally live there and teach. I am teaching C1 General English, and one of the challenges was a presentation assignment. It was actually quite a dilemma because for many years, students had to present in the classes, and that took just a long time. So just so that you get a framework, I have about 20 to 25 students per class, and I teach 4 classes, each of them 45 minutes. So I have about total of 90 students per semester. And if I had to allow them to present, I could really fit only 3 presentations in each class. And so that would mean that I would listen to about 12 presentations per day, and I would have to go for 8 days. That means 2 weeks of class time with absolutely no instruction. It was just listening to these presentations. And it was not only boring for me, but actually my students were getting bored towards the end of it. I know the topics were very interesting, but at the same time, they definitely had a problem with listening and not learning anything. And I can't say that they were not learning from one another, but these exchanges of maybe 2-3 seconds with questions, they were just so forced, and it did not seem that it was really working. My goal for this assignment, for presentation was to reshape it so that it reflects deep learning, critical learning, and that it would actually have a more appropriate assessment. So it would not be just an approach where, well, you have an assignment, it's due in 3 weeks, now everybody go, and here is your grade for the assignment. And I wanted to make it a little bit innovative. So what I did is I tried to design the course pretty much on research-based information, and I really worked on 3 most important things. I looked at collaborative learning, so obviously Vygotsky had a great influence on me, Jacobs, who really talked extensively about group learning and collaboration. I looked at process approach. I really don't believe in a product where you are given an assignment and you have to produce. And a lot of research, I'm listing just a couple, but a lot of research is really showing that process approach is probably one of the best approaches to teach assignments through deep learning, where students are really finding a lot of useful information. So in this process, students were choosing a topic, they were presenting a problem, then they had to look at the reasons or examine reasons, find a solution, then there was a teacher review, then we had a peer review, and finally it all ended up in a student conference. And at the same time, this course was informed by peer review research, and I discovered 6 very important points that were included in the course. First of all, a lot of researchers are claiming that students need to be trained. So during the courses, pretty much at every stage of the presentation, students were modeled how to choose topic, how to present a problem, how to find a solution. And it was done either through TED Talks, it was done through teacher modeling, it was done through different readings and just basic lectures where students were constantly trained how to do things. Definitely provide teacher models. So obviously, I work a lot on social media sites, and if students are supposed to look at each other's solutions, I would be modeling and responding to many posts. So really, as a teacher, I am modeling, but they also look at each other's responses, and they can criticize and see what works and what doesn't work. We actually talk about that. We have sessions for that. Number 3 was introduce oral component to feedback. So one of the problems with peer review is that peer reviews are typically done in forms. People fill out the forms, click, 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 and this is done. And actually, one of the researches that I found very valuable was the idea that you have to let people talk. Just put them in groups, give an oral component to it. So I dedicate a whole lesson where students can talk for about 20 minutes on each other's papers. Number 4 said use clearly defined forms. So obviously after talking, they are using forms, they are looking at certain criteria and create comfortable classroom and atmosphere. I think this is very important, and we've learned that in our plenary session. I have a new tool now, improv comedy, to create even better classroom atmosphere. But obviously those type of games where we are becoming sort of a family, a unity. And another thing that felt important was also addressing cultural norms, simply because in Lithuania we're not used to peer work. This is something that's very new to them. And I also have a lot of foreign students in the classrooms where I also have to make sure that they are ready to do this. So this research was done in 2 semesters. Fall 2019 and spring 2020, and unfortunately with COVID-19, a lot of very strange things happened. I had to move online, it was much harder to build atmosphere, and we actually could not even do a normal student conference. You guys are amazing with Zoom, we did not get that far. So even when I am talking about reflective process, I feel that everybody was so tired of that online typing and information. I did not even get very good results. I had a couple of survey questions. For me, most important was to make sure that the process learning was really helpful. Did you find teacher feedback effective, student feedback effective? And I wanted to really know what kind of feedback do they value more. I think most of the time, and sort of an instinctive message to me was that they obviously would value teacher feedback, but I really wanted them to understand that I have 90 students, and when I review presentations, I can really look at major problems. And when students are looking at one another's paper, or a presentation, they can notice small changes, small differences, things that maybe I would skip otherwise. So throughout this course, I was heavily encouraging students to understand that they are also experts because they are learning, they are looking at examples. We are learning to criticize, we are learning to observe the good things. And through all this modeling, they can become even better evaluators than actually a teacher. And I've got very interesting results from 2019 and 2020. I think I got only 22 student responses that actually attended lessons and went through the process consistently. And 24 in the next semester. And in general, what I can say that process approach was definitely useful. I think majority of them are saying yes. Did teacher feedback, was it effective? Again, majority, they're saying yes. But I think, again, during COVID-19, they even did not build a relationship with me. So in a way, I'm not surprised that some said, oh, I don't care about the teacher. She just talks and writes thousands of messages. I'm not even listening to her. So I feel like even that was a little bit affected. Now, in terms of the student feedback, there is a slighter difference. And I think one of the reasons was actually the lack of that oral communication. They simply did not dedicate much time for peer review in the classroom. They had to sit there. However, during COVID-19, they were all online. They had to do these group meetings, but obviously some of them just took 5 minutes instead of maybe 20 minutes. So it was not very effective, and I feel this is one of the reasons why they felt that student feedback was also not so effective. And did they prefer teacher or peer feedback? I think, again, I see that they prefer teacher feedback, which is very natural and normal, but I am very happy that during the regular classroom learning, they actually 30% of the students said that they like both. Looking at the deeper reflections, I really could only look at the results from fall 2019. Again, simply because when I did surveys, my online students were so tired from all that online communication. They just answered the questions quickly, but they really did not elaborate, did not say much. In terms of the process learning, obviously, half of the class just said that the presentation improved a lot. They learned a lot of useful things, and I'm going to look a little bit more at what they're looking, but they also were happy that they had more time to finish. It was interesting to go through the steps. Seems like they've never done a process approach, and they were very excited about it. Why did they like the teacher feedback? Obviously, more experience. Teachers maybe thought more, so it was more thoughtful feedback. They liked that I gave examples or more specific examples, more constructive. They also felt safer. They didn't have to really negotiate the meaning so much. What do I do now? And they say it was clearer. Now, some of them obviously like product approach because it was faster, and they say that they did not need a process. It was much harder, and of course, just do it. It's totally fine. So again, there are definitely groups of people who will choose faster, better method. I think those are the first year students when you're still kind of like, let's get over this. It was interesting to see why some students really enjoyed student feedback. So they said that students were of the same age. They were not afraid to ask questions. They could actually negotiate information. So for some people, it was very important and valuable. And obviously, they noticed that it depended on who they worked with. Some students were simply more motivated, and they provided better support than others. I looked also at deeper reflections on what they learned in terms of content, but for me, more importantly, it was to look at actually the process, things beyond the content. So obviously on the content side, they learned to use references, how to support ideas, how to look for articles, organization, focus ideas, grammar, hook, a couple of people mentioned that. But it's actually very nice that students really looked at time management skills. They learned to manage time. It was nice to hear that people said, I learned to think more critically about my work. I actually started enjoying research where I've never done that before. I like the fact that some people said, I learned to trust my peers. I learned to talk about my ideas. I learned that my ideas can be significant. I think these learning outcomes really showed that the process and the reflection really worked, and it really felt very good. So on the concluding side, if I'm looking also at the research results and what I've discovered, I think obviously I am going to be a supporter of process learning because that encourages deep learning and critical thinking. I think I've discovered that teacher feedback, no matter what, remains to be the essential skill in learning. But also, the teacher or training students and teaching how to evaluate was very useful for the students. They felt much more secure about it. So 82% of the students actually during the fall 2019 felt that they could trust their peers. And I think this is a huge achievement in training and huge achievement in showing how to criticize in that polite way, that not all criticism is necessarily negative, that it can be positive and it can lead to positive change. So I am extremely ecstatic about these results, and I think it's due to some extent to some of the research findings that are based, or that the course was based on. So again, I think one of the interesting things was that it really supported Katayama's findings, where it talked about classroom atmosphere. And I can draw this conclusion based on the two different ways of teaching, where I was in the classroom and we had a lot of interaction and we knew each other and we could see each other's faces, versus the COVID-19 situation where most students really did not have a camera, they did not want to connect, and sometimes even did not want to talk on their microphones. So obviously the atmosphere factor was lost, and I feel that even with the student trust and with the engagement, there were quite a few reduced percentages in the findings. And the other thing was obviously Wang's findings that oral contact is essential in peer review. Again, in the classroom, my students are forced to talk for 20 minutes about each paper, and I can see them. I see them really engaged. I see them really looking at slides and sharing ideas, and it's something really beautiful where some people are saying, oh, you're so good at technology, can you help me? You know, I saw you did something, can you help me do that? Or, you know, your grammar is really good, I know that, can you please help me check if the sentence is good? So I feel like in the classroom, they really were engaging, they were working or building on each other's strengths. And unfortunately, during the COVID-19, I could not really monitor so much their peer review. I couldn't even observe what they were doing. But I know that those sessions were much shorter, and they rather wanted to just fill out the forms, and they did not want to really talk and engage in the same way as they did in the classroom. So my results are sort of a little bit incomplete, or I feel like I could not really show full benefit of the process approach, reflective practice, and student conference. But I feel that this is absolutely wonderful, and I'm hoping that this semester I can do more of the same work. The conferences didn't happen last semester, but they happened in the fall. And it was actually very nice because, again, as a teacher, I didn't have to really grade so many presentations. They were in small groups and they were grading each other in a way. And I feel like because I worked with them in every stage, I knew their papers and I knew their progress so much that in a way I didn't really have to be that one person who says, okay, you got an 8, you got a 9. I feel like students were actually even more cruel to one another. They were evaluating these papers down. So obviously I had to almost like up the grades because I felt that they did an amazing job and they were very successful. So I would like to thank everybody for your attention. I try to stay within my limits. And if there are any questions, I am going to be happy to answer those questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for so many practical tips in your presentation. I'm going to start with the audiences here. We have one question in the chat, but if you have any ideas, any comments, any questions, maybe we can start with you, please.
Thank you, Vaida, for your presentation. Thank you very much. My question is very easy to answer. Could you briefly outline the form of peer review students gave to each other? Was it structured or semi-structured or just free comments, or what aspects does it focus on, etc., etc.? Could you briefly comment on this, please?
Okay, so the question is their review structured? And in a way, I think they do have a form. So we really talk about the form and we talk about what I want them to answer. So they're looking at definitely the introduction. They're looking at the success in, let's say, how they present the problem. Is the statistics clear? Are the reasons logical? You know, visually is the presentation interesting? So obviously, yes, they do have the criteria. And when they have the oral conversations, when they have 20 minutes to look at each other's presentations, I would say that pretty much I ask them to do, to have a conversation, like what stands out, what do you like, what did you see, do you see any problems? In a way, I'm not saying that this is so structured, but because we have been working stage by stage on certain things, they already know what to expect and they sort of know what we worked on. So naturally, their conversations go into these sort of points that have been covered in the class. But sometimes, you know, yeah, they do get into technical things. They say, oh, you know, but I watched the TED Talk and remember we all watched it and this presenter really has humor. And I think, you know, and so they get into tangents and that's totally fine. But at the same time, you know, yes, we do have some guidelines. And actually, after the oral presentation, after this oral peer review, they still have to fill out the forms so that the students actually can get feedback in a written format, and then they can base these revisions based on the two pieces of feedback.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We have more questions in the chat. So if you don't mind, there's Fergus O'Dwyer asking about the statistics. The question is, could you please explain or dig into the statistics a bit more? For example, I learned to think critically 15%. Does it mean that 85% did not or cannot think critically, or just did not feel progress in this area?
No, I had only really, I'm looking at a fairly small amount of students. I'm looking at 22 students because really these were the students who answered. And so when I'm saying 15% said that, it means that approximately 2 students mentioned that this was something that they have learned. So it does not mean that others are not thinking critically. I think many more students think critically. It's just that when I ask, what did you value most or what did you learn? 2 students actually mentioned very actively that this is what I have learned. This is what was important to me, what I took out from this experience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think it is clear. We have one more question. Christopher Lacey and Claudia basically ask about a very similar thing, and that is maybe some future changes based on your findings this year. Are you going to continue teaching online? And in general, what changes will you make based on the circumstances and your experience? Recent experience.
Yes, actually, Vytautas Magnus University in Lithuania, we have to teach online. So I am continuing to teach online. It's very, very scary because again, I don't have that opportunity to build so many, to build the atmosphere. Last semester was a little bit easier because we started in the classroom and I had to move them online. So I feel like we at least tried to build relationships. This time I have to really sort of try to work on that oral component, try to force these meetings. So I think we're going to be doing these online sessions where I am going to break them into chat rooms and I'm going to force this communication in a way. I think I was a little bit freer. I said, okay, guys, we're not going to have a lecture today. Just make sure you grab 2 partners, call each other and do this. And I feel like some of them really just did that 5-minute bare minimum. But I think if I have a lecture online and if I just put them into different breakout rooms and I talk to them, sort of interrupt a little bit, maybe add a word here or there, this oral communication is going to happen. So I also believe that students are learning to be better students online. They are not so tired maybe of information. They're not so tired of reading so much. I'm hoping that we're getting used to this. So maybe they will also be more willing to actually respond, fully respond. Maybe I have to look for a better form of a survey. So it's not only click, 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 you know, and the percentages come up. I really want to find a way where they will have to type in the answers. So I'm getting deeper, better reflections from the process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe some time for the last question. Anything from the audiences here? Yes, please.
So thank you very much for the presentation and interesting structuring of classes. I had I tried a similar thing, and I asked my students to peer review the presentations of the other students. The result, I'm from Slovakia, I don't know if it's culturally biased, but the result was they had the criteria to respond to and to stick to and comment on them. The result, and I promised that I will take their assessment into account in the final marking. So it was very dangerous promise, I will never do it again. And the result was that everybody got 100% points.
Oh.
So that's just my personal experience. I stopped doing that for that particular reason. Maybe if I worked on that for a longer time, but we don't have that much time in classes. So I don't know how you achieved that they really reacted
Responsibly,
in the way or responded in the way as they did, because this is quite,
okay.
I think it's almost ideal.
Thank you, thank you. If I can add a question, something I've been wondering about, is there, let's say, value distribution between the drafts? You mentioned 3 drafts in the abstract. Do you give students points, or do you credit the peer assessment and various or individual attempts at achieving the assignment, or is it just the final version that gets scored?
I do value peer review. If I don't value peer review, nobody will do anything. This is Lithuanian situation. You don't tell them they will get something, no cookies, no gain. So I have to value it. I tell them that you are gaining points, but really I don't think I stick to it so much. If I see a person who is doing an amazing result, like from step 1 to stage 3, if they really get to, you know, an amazing result, I can punish them for missing something. So in a way, I think really what I see is that students who are working consistently, they achieve great results. There are a lot of lazy students, and you can see I have 90 students in the classroom. I could manage to get only 22 who are actually working very hard. So maybe it sounds very ideal, but I'm looking at that percentage of the students who actually went through the process. And even the ones who went through the process, they said, I hated it because it's so much work. So, you know, it's not that ideal. But again, to answer the question from the audience, I think, first of all, the teacher has to believe in peer review. I was teaching for 20 years, and trust me, when I was in America for the first 10 years, for the first maybe even 15 years, I said, oh my God, peer review again. I hate this. This is so useless. This is absolutely garbage because these students don't do anything. And I don't know, somehow I started believing that this is actually good, that learning can actually occur. So I don't know if it's also me where I say, guys, please understand, I have 90 students. When I review your presentations, I cannot tell you everything. We are learning this material together. And trust me, you guys are smart. You guys are capable of doing this, and you really know, probably you have more time to do this. So please trust each other. I mean, you have your heads inside, right? If somebody says something stupid, obviously you can negotiate and say, no, this is not right. Let's think about it, you know, but the teacher said, and at the end, if you are not sure, you can always go back to me. But it was very, very nice to hear that some of the students who wanted to learn, and obviously I have also these, you know, 50 students who don't care at all. But I think the enthusiasm, and that what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to teach to them, be critical. You know, you have opinions, you have ideas, you have strengths. I think it's catchy. Somehow some students get it and they say, you know what, yes, I can. And I think the key is also that the teacher is always modeling that positive stuff. And I show my own presentations and, you know, towards the end, I say, okay, come on, guys, don't you see? I did something really stupid on the slide. Come on, nobody's gonna call this. And so finally they realize that I can make mistakes. Everybody can make mistakes, even if I have, you know, 40 years of experience with life. And I think this is where that comfort zone is starting to build up. So I think it's just also the teaching style. It's getting comfortable and really believing in the process that's maybe going to help.
Thank you.
I remember truly, yes, I would say, this didn't work, but now it does.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I will have to interrupt you at this point. We need to open the windows for a bit before we have the last speaker. So can we take a minute or two? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for the questions. Thank you.